Sometimes the hardest lesson we'll ever have to learn is that not everybody deserves a front row seat in our lives. Some people were only meant to be a chapter, but we try to keep them for the whole book. And while God is calling us to evolve, we keep trying to drag along people who don't see our value, who don't honor our presence, and who don't respect the weight of what we carry. You can't move into the fullness of who God has called you to be if you keep holding on to dead weight. Today, I want to remind you that your worth is not negotiable, your destiny is not up for debate, and your peace is too expensive to let anybody cheapen it. One of the most painful yet powerful revelations you can ever experience is recognizing when someone does not value you the way God has called you to be valued. And the truth is, many of us don't even realize it because we've been conditioned to accept crumbs and call it bread. We've been told at least they're there, or at least they come around sometimes. But let me tell you something, your value doesn't diminish just because someone else can't see it. When someone undervalues you, it doesn't say anything about your worth, it just exposes the limitation of their vision. You see, being undervalued often looks subtle. It's not always loud disrespect. Sometimes it's in the way they dismiss your ideas, or the way they never celebrate your wins but are quick to highlight your mistakes. It's in the silence when you needed encouragement, the absence when you needed presence, and the excuses when you needed effort. And if you're not careful, you'll start questioning if maybe you are asking for too much, when in reality you're just asking for the bare minimum. God never created you to live a life of constant compromise just to feel seen. You were created in His image, which means you carry a divine identity that deserves to be acknowledged. So when you notice that the people you're giving your time, your heart, and your energy to can't even honor that, you have to step back and evaluate. Because here's the truth, the more you allow people to undervalue you, the more you start undervaluing yourself. Recognizing when you're being undervalued requires discernment. And discernment doesn't come from your feelings, it comes from your spirit. Your feelings will say, but I love them, I've known them for years, they've been there since day one. But your spirit will whisper, they don't push you toward God, they don't pour into you, they only take from you. And if you're really honest with yourself, you'll realize that some people only clap for you when your light doesn't outshine theirs. That's not value, that's convenience. Think about Jesus. Even He had to deal with being undervalued. In His own hometown, people said, "Isn't this the carpenter's son?" They couldn't see Him as the Messiah because they were too familiar with His humanity. They undervalued Him because they couldn't perceive His anointing. And what did Jesus do? The Bible says He did not do many miracles there because of their lack of faith. Catch this. When you stay in environments where you are undervalued, it limits what God can do through you. So how do you recognize it? Start paying attention to patterns. Do they show up consistently or only when it benefits them? Do they honor your boundaries or do they guilt trip you when you enforce them? Do they celebrate your growth or do they get uncomfortable when you elevate? These are signs not just of how they see you, but of how much they value you. And here's the part we don't like to admit. Sometimes we stay undervalued because it feels safer than being alone. But let me remind you, being alone doesn't mean being unloved. Sometimes separation is God's protection. Sometimes God allows people to show you their inability to value you so that you stop relying on them for validation and start leaning fully on Him. The moment you recognize you are being undervalued is the moment you can take your power back. Because you can't change what you won't confront, and you can't heal from what you keep excusing. When you see it, call it what it is. Don't dress it up, don't water it down. The truth may sting, but it will set you free. One of the biggest traps we fall into is confusing love with loyalty. We assume that because someone says they love us, because they care for us in moments, or because they have history with us, that it automatically equals loyalty. But love without loyalty is inconsistent. Love without loyalty will tell you, I'll be there, but when the storm hits, you're left standing by yourself. Love without loyalty will clap for you in public, but secretly envy your growth in private. We've been told our whole lives that if someone loves us, they'll stick around no matter what. But the truth is, not everybody who loves you is loyal to you. Some people love you when it's convenient. They love you when it benefits them. They love you when you're down because it makes them feel needed. But the moment you rise, their loyalty gets tested. That's because their love was rooted in their comfort, not in your covenant. God never designed relationships to just be about emotion. Love is beautiful, but loyalty is fruit. Loyalty is proof. Loyalty says, even when it's not easy, even when it doesn't benefit me, even when I don't understand, I'll remain consistent. And that's where we've got to open our eyes, because a lot of us are settling for people who love us but are not loyal to us. And then we wonder why we feel drained, why we feel unsupported, why we feel like we're carrying the weight of relationships by ourselves. Think about Judas. Judas loved Jesus enough to walk with him, to sit at the table, to perform miracles alongside him. But when it came time to choose loyalty, Judas traded him for 30 pieces of silver. And if Jesus himself had someone close to him who loved him but wasn't loyal to him, what makes us think we're exempt? Judas's kiss was a demonstration that love is not always loyalty. Sometimes the ones closest to you will smile in your face, but partner with your enemy behind your back. That's why discernment is so critical. Love feels good, but loyalty proves good. And the problem is that many of us stay in relationships, romantic, platonic, even family, because we keep saying, but they love me. Yes, they may love you, but are they loyal? Do they protect your name when you're not in the room? Do they celebrate your growth when it surpasses theirs? Do they guard your secrets or use them as weapons when they're offended? These are the questions that reveal the truth. And I know it hurts to accept. It hurts to realize that someone can love you but not have the character to stay loyal to you. It hurts because we tie love to permanence. We believe that if someone loves us, they'll never leave, they'll never betray, they'll never fail us. But that's not reality. And the quicker we separate the idea of love from loyalty, the quicker we can protect our hearts and guard our destinies. Here's the thing, loyalty requires integrity, and not everybody who says they love you has integrity. Some people are loyal only to their own desires, their own needs, their own image, and if their love for you doesn't align with their loyalty to themselves, they'll choose themselves every time. That doesn't make you unworthy, it just reveals that their capacity was never enough to carry the weight of what you bring. When God sends people into your life, He doesn't just send those who can love you. He sends those who can be loyal to your calling. He sends people who can hold your hand while you're walking into destiny, not just hold your heart when it's convenient for them. That's why He sometimes allows disloyalty to show up. It's His way of pruning your circle so that when you step into your next season, you're not surrounded by people who love you but won't stand by you. So hear me clearly. Stop equating love with loyalty. Don't let the word love keep you tied to relationships that are draining you. Test the fruit. Love talks, but loyalty shows up. Love feels, but loyalty stays. Love can be fleeting, but loyalty endures. And once you understand that difference, you'll stop begging people to stay and start allowing God to align you with those who don't just love you, but are loyal to the purpose He's placed inside you. For so many of us, the word no feels heavy. It feels like rejection, like failure, like letting someone down. We've been conditioned to believe that in order to be loved, we have to always say yes. Yes to their needs, yes to their demands, yes to their timelines. And before we know it, we are so busy pleasing everyone else that we've abandoned ourselves. But let me tell you this, your no has power. Your no is not selfish. Your no is sacred. The enemy thrives in a place where boundaries are absent. He knows that if he can keep you saying yes to everything, you will eventually say no to yourself and no to the calling God placed on your life. That's why some of us are so tired, so drained, so stretched thin. We've been giving yes after yes when God has been whispering, "Daughter, this is a season for no." Saying no does not mean you don't love people. It means you're learning to love yourself enough to protect your assignment. Think about Jesus. He was the Son of God with a heart full of compassion. Yet even He had moments where He withdrew from the crowd. People were always pulling on Him, always wanting His time, His miracles, His touch. But the Bible says He often withdrew to lonely places to pray. Why? Because even Jesus understood that constant yes to people would cost Him the intimacy He needed with His Father. If He needed boundaries, how much more do we? The guilt we feel from saying no often comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing relationships, fear of being called selfish. But here's the truth. People who genuinely value you will respect your boundaries even if they don't like them. And people who only value what you do for them will always make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. That guilt is not your portion. That guilt is manipulation in disguise. There's freedom in recognizing that your no doesn't need to be explained or justified. Some of us waste so much energy trying to write essays for our boundaries, hoping people will understand. But let me free you today. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe everybody an explanation. When God tells you to pull back, when God tells you to rest, when God tells you to guard your space, your obedience to Him matters more than anybody's opinion of you. And let's be honest, sometimes the reason we can't say no is because we're addicted to being needed. We find our worth in being available and being the one everybody can call and being the savior in other people's stories. But if you're always rescuing everybody else, who's rescuing you? If you're always pouring, when do you refill? You cannot continue to give what you don't have, and if your yes is leaving you empty, then it's time to reevaluate. Think about the seasons you've overcommitted, saying yes to friends, to family, to work, to ministry, only to end up exhausted, resentful, and broken. That's not God's will. He didn't create you to live in burnout. He created you to operate from overflow. And overflow requires knowing when to say yes and when to say no. The power of no is not about shutting people out. It's about letting God in. It's about giving Him space to move in your life without you being weighed down by everyone else's expectations. It's about preserving the oil He's placed inside you so that when the right assignment comes, you're not too tired to say yes. So here's what I want you to understand. Every time you say no to what drains you, you are saying yes to what sustains you. Every time you say no to what distracts you, you are saying yes to what develops you. Every time you say no to people who don't honor your boundaries, you are saying yes to peace, yes to purpose, and yes to God's divine order for your life. Your no is not rejection, it's redirection. It's not selfish, it's stewardship. And once you embrace that truth, you'll stop carrying guilt and start carrying grace. One of the greatest gifts God has given you is peace. Peace is not just silence. Peace is not just the absence of chaos. Peace is the presence of God's order in your life, and that peace is precious. But here's the reality. If you don't protect your peace, if you don't guard your energy, life and people will drain it out of you before you even realize what happened. We live in a culture that celebrates being busy, being available, being constantly plugged in. But can I tell you, busyness is not the same as fruitfulness. Some of us are busy but barren. We're pouring into places that never pour back. We're showing up for people who never show up for us. And we're exhausting ourselves, wondering why we don't have joy, why we don't have clarity, why we can't hear from God. The truth is, your energy is being scattered where it doesn't belong. Protecting your energy is not about being selfish, it's about being strategic. It's about recognizing that you cannot pour oil into cracked vessels that refuse to be healed. You can't keep giving the best of you to people and places that don't even value your presence. Every yes you give costs you energy. Every space you enter costs you atmosphere. And if you don't learn to guard it, you'll end up bankrupt in your spirit, trying to survive on fumes. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Your peace flows from your heart. Your energy flows from your spirit. If you allow negativity, drama, and dysfunction to keep creeping in, it won't be long before your peace is shattered and your energy is depleted. That's why you have to be intentional about who and what gets access to you. Think about Jesus again. Not everybody had access to Him. Yes, He preached to crowds, but His inner circle was small. He had the 12 disciples, but even within the 12, He had the 3, Peter, James, and John. And in His most intimate moments, He didn't invite everyone. He guarded His energy because He understood His mission required discernment about who could walk with Him. If Jesus protected His circle, why do we think we can let everybody in and still walk in peace? Protecting your energy sometimes looks like silence. It looks like logging off social media when it's too noisy. It looks like not answering the phone when you know that call is going to drain you. It looks like saying no to gatherings that pull you out of alignment with God. Protecting your energy is not rude, it's wisdom. Because the truth is, not everyone is entitled to access you at every moment. But here's where it gets real. Some of us struggle to protect our peace because we feel guilty for pulling back. We think we owe people unlimited access to us just because of history or family or obligation. But let me free you today. Peace is priceless. And anything that consistently costs you your peace is too expensive. When you protect your energy, you make room for clarity. You create space for God's voice to be louder than the noise around you. You position yourself to move with intentionality instead of reacting to everything pulling on you. You start walking in purpose instead of in pressure. Guarding your peace is not about building walls. It's about setting boundaries. It's about saying, this is what I will allow and this is what I will not allow. It's about understanding that if something disrupts your spirit, it doesn't deserve permanent residency in your life. Some battles aren't even yours to fight. They're distractions designed to drain you. And the enemy loves to see you so tired and so consumed by drama that you don't even have the strength to step into what God is calling you to do. So I want you to remember this: your peace is your power. When you have peace, you can hear God clearly. When you have peace, you can make decisions without fear. When you have peace, you can show up fully present, not fragmented and drained. And that's why the enemy fights your peace so hard, because he knows if he can steal your peace, he can silence your progress. Protect it, guard it. Don't apologize for it, because the more you protect your energy and guard your peace, the more you'll realize that peace is not just a feeling, it's your weapon. Pruning is one of the hardest seasons to walk through because it doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like progress. When God starts cutting things off, friendships, opportunities, relationships, it can feel like rejection. It can feel like loss. But in reality, pruning is not punishment. Pruning is preparation. Jesus said in John 15 that every branch that bears fruit, the Father prunes so it can bear even more fruit. That means if you're being pruned, it's because you're fruitful. It's because God sees potential in you. It's because He knows there's more in you than what you're currently producing. But here's where we wrestle. Pruning requires trust. It requires us to believe that the God who is cutting is also the God who is cultivating. Some of us are grieving over people God has removed, not realizing He was protecting us. We're crying over doors that closed, not realizing that if those doors stayed open, they would have drained us dry. We're asking God, why did you let them leave? Why didn't you let that opportunity work out? But what we fail to see in the moment is that pruning is God's way of making room for His promise. If He doesn't cut, we won't grow. The pain of pruning is that it feels like subtraction. You look around and suddenly your circle is smaller, your plans have shifted, your resources look limited. But the truth is, God is not subtracting. He's making space. He's clearing out what doesn't align with your destiny. He's removing what would choke your growth in the next season. And if we can trust Him in the cut, we will see the harvest on the other side. Think about Gideon. He started out with an army of thousands, but God pruned his army down to just 300 men. To Gideon, it looks like loss. It looks like weakness. But to God, it was strategy. God said, if I let you win with thousands, you'll think you did it on your own. But if I prune you down, you'll know it was me. That's what pruning does. It strips away our reliance on people and places and pushes us to depend fully on God. And let's be real, pruning also reveals who was never for us in the first place. Some people only stay connected because of what you could give them. Some relationships only survive because you kept watering them, not because they had deep roots. When God begins to prune, He exposes what was fake, what was shallow, and what was holding you back. It may hurt to let it go, but it's dangerous to keep carrying what God has already cut. Trusting God in the pruning process means believing that His no is just as holy as His yes. It means understanding that closed doors are not curses, they are redirections. It means saying, Lord, I don't like it, I don't understand it, but I trust you. Because the truth is, God sees what we cannot see. He knows the conversations behind our backs. He knows the hidden motives of people's hearts. He knows the traps the enemy set up ahead. And when He prunes, He's not trying to harm us. He's trying to protect us. What if the very thing you're fighting to hold onto is the thing God is trying to free you from? What if the loss you're grieving is the doorway to your next level? That's the paradox of pruning. It feels like death, but it produces life. It feels like endings, but it births beginnings. So when the scissors come out, don't resist, lean in. Trust that your Father knows exactly what He's doing. Because when the season shifts, when the new fruit begins to bloom, when the harvest starts showing, you'll realize the pruning was necessary. You'll look back and thank God not just for what He gave you, but for what He took away. One of the most intimidating realities we face in life is the possibility of having to walk alone. It's one thing to cut ties with people who don't value you, but it's another to stand in that quiet space where the phone doesn't ring, the circle is smaller, and you start questioning if maybe you made a mistake. Loneliness can feel like punishment. But let me tell you, when God allows separation, it is never for your destruction. It is for your development. We have to learn to be confident in walking alone if necessary, because sometimes the path God has for you requires solitude. When Abraham was called by God, He told him, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." That command didn't come with a caravan of friends. It didn't come with a full entourage. It came with faith. Abraham had to leave comfort, familiarity, and community to step into covenant. And that's the tension many of us feel. You want the promise, but you don't want the isolation that often precedes it. Walking alone doesn't mean you're unloved. It doesn't mean you're forgotten. It doesn't mean you'll always be by yourself. Walking alone means God is pulling you away from the noise so you can hear His voice more clearly. It means He's removing the distractions so you can develop the discipline you need for the next season. It means He's stripping away your dependence on people so you can lean fully on Him. And let's be real, walking alone is scary at first. You start to wonder, what if nobody understands me? What if they talk about me? What if they think I've changed? But here's the truth, sometimes being misunderstood is the evidence that you're evolving. Everybody can't understand where God is taking you because they weren't called to walk where you're walking. That doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you chosen. The danger is when we let the fear of being alone push us back into toxic spaces. Some of us would rather sit at a crowded table where we're undervalued than eat alone where we're at peace. But hear me, peaceful solitude is better than chaotic company. Walking alone with God will always be safer than walking with a crowd that secretly doesn't want to see you win. Jesus Himself understood the weight of walking alone. In the Garden of Gethsemane, He asked His disciples to watch and pray with Him, but they fell asleep. In His greatest hour of need, He was alone. On the cross, He was isolated. And yet, in that solitude, destiny was being fulfilled. That's the revelation. We may feel alone, but we're never truly alone because God is always with us. And if God is with you, you have everything you need. Walking alone builds strength. It teaches you how to pray without an audience. It teaches you how to encourage yourself when no one else is clapping. It teaches you how to discern God's whispers without the distraction of other voices. And once you develop that confidence in solitude, you'll never be shaken by who comes or who goes, because you'll know your stability isn't rooted in people, it's rooted in God. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in your life will come in seasons of isolation. Moses met God at the burning bush when he was alone. Jacob wrestled with God and came out with a new identity when he was alone. John received the revelation on the island of Patmos. There is something powerful about what God can do in you when there are no other voices around. So don't despise the season where you have to walk by yourself. Don't see it as punishment, see it as preparation. Don't see it as rejection, see it as redirection. God is building a version of you that isn't dependent on applause, isn't swayed by opinions, and isn't afraid of silence. And once you become confident in walking alone, you'll realize that solitude is not emptiness, it's intimacy with God.